Today's speaker, which is Dr. Parveen Ali. She is a registered nurse teacher, and senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy and fellow of Royal Society of Arts. She leads MedSci Advanced Nursing Studies and chairs the School of Nursing and Midwifery's Research Ethics Committee at the University of Sheffield. She has several publications relating to nursing and is a member of the NHS Research Ethics Committee in Yorkshire and Humber. It's an honour to introduce Dr. Parveen today, and we are all very excited to hear about the developments of females in science and technology and the opportunities for the developing countries. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Parveen to take the stage. In terms of certificates, I will be posting the link on the chat, so please fill that out. And without further ado, if Dr. Parveen could take the stage. Thank you.
Parveen, it's over to you.
Thank you,
Please share the screen.
Sure. Thank you, Rida. Very kind of you. I'm just going to take a minute to just share my screen, if that's okay. Okay. So thank you ever so much for giving me this opportunity and inviting me for this talk today. And thank you, everybody, all colleagues and everyone who have joined us in this talk. And so as you know, that I'm going to talk about women in science and technology as issues and opportunities for developing countries. So my talk, what makes me qualified to talk about this? My research interest, in addition to, I'm a nurse by background, so in addition to nursing related subjects, my area of interest is gender-based violence and domestic abuse. I am editor of a journal, a widely based journal called Nursing Open, and sit on some other journals as well on editorial boards. I do lots of stuff around gender and how we can improve participation of women into various different fields, and also talk about issues which affect women's contribution to various different positions and various different fields. I'm also part of a charity called Upsign, and I co-lead with one of my other colleagues the health strand of the charity. And the idea through this is that we connect academics in the UK with academics in Pakistan, and we, as I say, I lead the health component, but we are a multidisciplinary group, so we try and work through various different disciplines together. So today my talk is based on my understanding, and this is a subject which is very near to my heart, so I'll try and explain how this affects women participation in developing countries, but particularly taking examples from Pakistan and what are the lessons that we can learn going forward, if that's okay. So before I just go any further, I would also like you to, I just don't want you to just listen to it at one hand, but contribute to it if that's to the discussion as well, if that's okay. So I'm just going to share an exercise with you, and then I will invite maybe a couple of comments from a couple of people within the group, if that's okay. And Rida, if that's possible, if people are allowed to use their mic, and if they can just say their comment around that would be really useful. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's great. If you can't turn your mic on, just write your answer on the chat and I'll read it out.
Yeah, that's fine. So the exercise is, I would like you to listen to this story and read the story and see what you think, what your reactions are. And I'll ask you that question at the end. So a father and son were involved in a car accident in which the father was killed and the son was seriously injured. The father was pronounced dead at the scene of the accident and was taken to a local morgue. The son was taken by ambulance to a nearby hospital and was immediately wheeled into an emergency operation room. A surgeon was called, and upon arrival and seeing the patient, the attending surgeon exclaimed, "Oh my God, it's my son. I can't operate on him. Can you explain this? Who is the surgeon?" So maybe we can have a couple of hands up or something if people are able to share, or just write in the chat box, whatever is easier.
Maybe grandpa?
Yeah, so, and Nigat Husnain says the mother.
Okay, thank you, Nigat. Anyone else?
And Don Du says mother. Everyone's saying mother.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Excellent. So now I would also like you to, I'm just going to give you different names of different professions. And what I would like you to do is that if the men or male comes to your mind, just click yes. And if females comes to your mind, click no. That is because we don't really have set up the options here. So if you can just keep that in mind, male for yes and female is no. Okay. So just quick round. So if I just say something, just click on that. Okay. Doctor. Rida, can you see how many yeses and no we have?
Yeah, we have 3 yeses so far.
And no?
We don't have any no's yet.
Okay. Nurse.
Yeah, we all knows.
All no's. Okay. Pilot.
We're getting yeses now.
Engineer.
We're getting yeses.
Personal secretary.
No's. Yep, no.
Okay. So what does that exercise tells you? Now take a moment and think of what you have said. I think the previous exercise, everyone rightly identified that it was the mother who was the surgeon. And now I don't know who has identified that, if the participants, most of them were females, or was it coming from male and female. But this is one of the exercises where many people, when you start thinking around it, they just kind of really struggle. And the usual answer is they struggle with the idea that surgeon could be a male, surgeon could be the mother. So they come up with various different stories to explain it. And the next exercise, you yourself have seen that when we have talked about doctors, majority would say it's a male profession. Nurse, majority would say it's a female profession. Pilot, men comes to your mind. Engineer, men comes to your mind. Personal secretary, female comes to your mind. So what is it? Is it something that, are we saying that females can't be doctors? Or are we saying that males cannot be nurses? Are we saying that pilots cannot be females? And so on and so forth. So there is something which goes on in our mind, and that's what affects our ability to think around these subjects. So I had another one, but anyway, and few of them. So what are we going to do today? So we are going to talk about what do we mean by science and technology subject. What are there any example careers? Why do we need women in science and technology, and what is the issue? Do we not have role models? Where do we stand now? And why there are less women in science and technology, and what can we do about it? So, and also I would like to you to keep in mind a few definitions or a few concepts. And first is gender. Gender or gender role expectation is gender is defined by the society. It's a social construct which tells us what our roles and responsibilities are. It is created in the families, in societies and culture. And through this, we want men and women to behave in a certain way. We want them to dress in a certain way. We want them to talk in a certain way. We want them to go into certain professions. So these are the expectations that we have from men and women. So anything outside that expectation causes it's out of our expectations basically. So we are scared, we are not used to, we don't want to see that, and it's something different, so therefore we find it difficult to cope with it. Gender equity is the process for being fair to men and women, to treat both of them equally where possible, and on the similar sort of grounds where the equity is necessary. Gender equality is a concept which when gender equality exists, it means that women and men both are able to enjoy the same status in the society. They have similar conditions, they are entitled to similar treatment, similar job opportunities, similar progression opportunities, and they're able to contribute to the society and benefit from the society equally, regardless of their gender, and contribute to any parts of the society, be it economical conditions, political situations, or the social fabric of the society. Okay, so science and technology. When we talk about science and technology, there are various different terms that we that come to our mind. And science and technology at the moment is very, very vast. And if you actually look at it, it goes on to nearly all subjects that we do it. There was a time when science and technology in itself was a only discipline, but now every discipline that you talk about also has some element of science and technology. So it's kind of a very, very broad definition. But some of the terminology that you often hear is STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and alternative terms, which is STEAM, stream, metal. And again, within these disciplines, you will see that sometimes arts and added, sometimes there are discussion if the medicine and nursing are part of the STEM subjects or not. So it's quite a broad categorization. Having said that, what it basically means that wherever there is application of science, technology, and mathematics and engineering, those subjects come into this particular definition. So by this definition, you will see that nearly most subjects that we talk about do come under that definition. And examples could be space scientists, which could start off from anything from astronauts to rocket scientists, meteorologists to climate scientists, health professionals, which may include doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, bioengineers, pharmacists, and so on and so forth. Engineers, which can have, again, architects, civil engineers, chemical engineers, and you name it. Accountants, who deal with the maths and deal with accounts of different companies and have mathematical and other characteristics required for their job. Web developers, who also need to have an understanding of algorithm, maths, etc., to be able to develop website which runs effectively for various different professions. And biologists. So these are just some example, but as I say, that the list is extensive, and if you actually start looking into the multidisciplinary examples, you would see that these disciplines, or the application of science, technology, and maths is nearly in every field. So why do we need women in science and technology? Well, worldwide, what we see is that number of women in science and technology is much less than men. And that is true for developing as well as developed countries. But when it comes to developing countries, and if we take the example of Pakistan, we have got stereotypes around different professions. So some disciplines are not needed for females or not suitable for females because they need too much hard work, and perhaps female can't do that. Some disciplines are not appropriate to female identity, they're more manly and stuff, so therefore we think that probably they can't do that. Some disciplines we think that they will not be able to do it because of their family responsibility. So there are quite a lot of assumptions and stereotypes that we have which affect women and girls and their participation into different disciplines. But why do we need women? Well, because half of the world's population is women, and it is nearly about 49 point something proportion of women in the world. So it's an equal half. So therefore, they need to have equal opportunities. Women, as I say, women should have the same rights. When more women work, economies of any countries grow and countries prosper. So, and families prosper. So when women work, it brings prosperity to the family, to the individuals themselves, to the country, and to the whole world. Achieving sustainable development goals requires reducing gender disparity and creating equal opportunities for women. And there are many countries in the world who have signed up to these goals. So if you want to keep our promises, we need to make sure that we involve women into various different opportunities. Women have proven themselves and have made place for themselves in various different fields. You will see women are pilots, you will see women are medics, neuroscientists, women have worked in NASA, and so on and so forth. So now it's not really the same thing that maybe because this field is too difficult for them, therefore they can't do it. So they have proven themselves that they can actually compete and do and sometimes do better in any of those fields. So therefore they have we need to encourage them to join it. Women bring innovation. So when we do not involve women into the science and technology, we only see things from a very narrow perspective. So there are examples of research. For example, Siri, when it was initially developed, it was identified that it would only listen to or understand, interpret male voices, so it was not suitable for the women needs. And a lot of other narrating devices as well had the similar sort of problems. At the same, also the temperature regulating mechanism, when it was developed for offices, it was usually developed on the basis of the metabolic rate and temperature of male members, and therefore it's not the temperature usually is a bit colder for female in many different offices, so, which then has effect on their ability to perform their work effectively. Similarly, personal and protective equipment. I know that we have become more aware of the personal and protective equipment use in the context of health and the abbreviation used these times, but this is something that has been used for quite a long time in various different disciplines, for example, constructions. And evidence suggests that a majority of the PPE related equipment is designed for men, and only 5% of women actually are happy with the PPE which they receive and do not have complained about. But otherwise, because it doesn't fit women, it doesn't resolve their problem. So, and if I give you a very relevant example from developing countries such as Pakistan. So we were involved in a multidisciplinary research projects trying to involve women into water-related projects where they wanted to look at the wells, and they wanted to look at the desalination of water and other. We do not always think about the main consumer of the water, who would use water quite a lot, troubles or their problems which they're experiencing, or things which work for them or which doesn't work for them. Because majority of the work which women do at home, it's cooking, cleaning, and all the other aspects needs water. And it was very difficult for male scientists in those fields to understand why do we actually need to have women into the project. And it all started by the need of the funders that the project has to multidisciplinary, it has to involve women into it. And there are countless examples like that, where you actually have to struggle quite a lot to demonstrate why do you need women into the project and what is it that which they can bring into it. But actually, if you involve women, they can come up with a very different perspective. They can make you think of the points that you may not have thought about, and it just brings more innovation and more success to the work that we do. Above all, lots of opportunities in science and technology fields coming up as we are moving forward. Let's take the example of information communication technology. This is one of the growing field which is encroaching into every field of science, technology, or medicine, or nursing, or anything, you name it, and it's there. But then at the same time, we need people who are able to meet the demands of it, and there are not enough people around it. So if we involve women into it, that will not only bring, like as I say, make economies work better for women, but innovation wise and other aspects would make it much more easier for people to work around. So there is quite a lot of work where we actually need people to work through the disciplines, and that would provide us an opportunity. So where are we now? Well, actually, if you look at the world, so this is a map which tells you the number of female researchers in the world. And it gives us the total, the information about the total share of researcher from the data available in 2017 and later. And it's, according to this, there are only about 30% women researchers all around the world. The percentage varies anything between 30 to 48 or 47%, depending on which countries you live in, but you can see that it's quite dispersed. And another figure, if I show you this, that, as I say, there are 30% women in research. And when we talk about science and technology related fields in higher education, the percentage is 30% generically, but if you reduce it down and look at various different aspects, if you look at information communication technology, only 3% of girls and women choose that particular career. If you look at mathematics, only about 5% women choose that sort of career. So the maximum is 8% into something. So there are, you see there is quite a lot of disparities in there. This slide here gives you information about percentage of students who take advanced courses in mathematics and physics by gender in the age in grade 12. And you can easily see that more boys than girls take advanced courses in mathematics and physics in secondary education in grade 12. And the data is taken from various different countries in the world in 2015. So it just gives you that indication. Interestingly, up until grade 4 and grade 5, the difference is not very stark. Girls and boys do the same, but as they progress into the senior grades, things start changing. The next slide, this slide provides you information about share of female and male students enrolled in higher education by their field of study, and it gives you a global average. And again, you can see significant differences in higher education enrollment by field of study. So if you look at information and communication technology and engineering, manufacturing, construction related businesses, you can see that there are more males into it as compared to females. Where if you look at education, health, arts and humanities subjects, you will see more females into those professions or those disciplines. And again here, this slide tells you about distribution of female students enrolled in higher education by field of study. It's just presented slightly differently. And nearly, as I said earlier, about 30% of the female students are in engineering and STEM related fields, and between them, a large majority is health and welfare. So you could easily see the statistics around that. In addition, it is also that it's not that the number of women joining higher education courses is small, but it is also that attrition or the rate of women leaving this profession is quite high as well. And what are various different factors? As I said earlier on, one of this is perceived compatibility of subjects and female identity, that, the construction workers or women don't do construction work, so they're not involved in any of those sorts of activities. Even in developed countries like UK and US, you will see less women going into construction work. And I think developing countries, especially Pakistan, I don't think we've ever seen any woman doing the construction work related aspects. Family obligations, the jobs do not match to the family obligations. It doesn't allow people to do that. It could be a perceived issue or it could be an actual issue, and these include children, marriage, household responsibilities, and so on and so forth. Working environment and conditions may not be appropriate, which then affects people's ability to choose the disciplines that they want to work in. So why is it so? Do we not have role models? Well, actually, throughout the history, we did have a lot of role models. So here, I'm just giving you a few examples. So this is Augusta Ada King. That's an example. She was a mathematician, and that's an example from UK. She's known as mother of modern computing, and she was someone who wrote first computer algorithm. Then we have Florence Nightingale, who was a nurse, social reformer, a statistician. She was known as Lady of the Lamp and is identified as inventor of modern nursing. She was someone responsible for reducing the death rate in the Crimean War from 42% to 2%, and was able to design hospital system and improvement in sanitation systems in the households and in the hospital. She was somebody who presented statistical data in graphic format and developed proportional pie chart, which is still used today. up until now. Rebecca Cole was a physician and public health professional and advocate in US. She was one of the first Black women doctors in US who challenged the racist assumption that Black people suffer diseases because of ignorance of their hygiene. And she pointed out that it was not their ignorance, but it was more about the care and the quality of care which they receive from other people. Joanne Clark was cryptanalyst and oh my God, I find this word difficult, numismatist. She actually gained first in mathematics from Cambridge, but was denied a full degree as Cambridge did not award these degrees to women at that time. But later on, she was acknowledged for her work. Katherine Johnson was a NASA space scientist who was acknowledged for her work as a physicist, mathematician, and space scientist. Radia Perlman, and she was somebody who designed and developed algorithm behind spanning tree protocol and trill protocols. She was someone who developed a child-friendly programming language used by children as young as 3 years of age. Susan Carr is another example, who is an iconographer, and there are so many examples all around the world. When we look at developing countries, and if we look at Pakistan, there are quite a lot of examples. I'm just giving you some examples of women in science and technology in Pakistan, but obviously there are lots more than that. One of the interesting things, however, is that when we try and look for Muslim women's example or even Muslim men's example, we do not really see a lot of information available on the internet. And this is something which I have recently realized. I'm writing a book on nursing and midwifery in Pakistan, and so in that quest started trying to look for Muslim nurses, and somehow we just come out with only one nurse, which is Rafadul Salamia, and there doesn't seem to be any information, any first Muslim nurse or Hindu nurse or Christian nurse or physician in South Asian countries, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and you name it. So that's a kind of a slightly off the topic point, but it tells you that how bad we are in celebrating success, in having that information available for our future generations, so who know that where we are going. And again, it relates back to role models, that when we start looking for role models, there's not a lot of information available for us to look up to and to see who these people are. So what affects girls and women's participation, progression, and achievement? Well, UNESCO have used an ecological framework which talks about various different factors which affects women's ability or the girls' ability to engage into fields. And the thing is that it's multifactorial. There are individual level factors which may include biological factors that influence individuals' abilities and skills and behaviors, such as brain structure, functions, hormones, genetics, cognitive traits, language skills, etc. Psychological factors including self-efficacy and motivation. There are family and peer related factors, there are school level factors, and there are societal factors. So at individual factors, some of the factors that which I talked about, interestingly, research on the differences in the brain structure and how men and women learn is not convincing. So there is quite a lot of contradictory argument, which means that if someone have said that men and women think differently and therefore are not able to cope with science and technology related subjects, there are other researchers which has countered that particular argument. But so it is more about the self-efficacy, it is more about self-perception, and it is more about being exposed and socialized into an environment where we have got stereotypes, where girls cannot be engineers, where girls cannot be mathematicians, where girls should have career choices as to doing subjects like home economics. Same goes into the family and peer related aspects, where parental beliefs and expectations has an influence on girls' choices of their career and their progress into the fields which they want to progress on. Interestingly, where parents themselves are scientists or professionals, their children and their girls are much more likely to take up maths, science, and other technology related subjects. Then the next level is school. The interaction with teachers, what sort of facilities are available, teaching quality and subject experiences, teaching strategies used in the schools, and many different things again has an influence on girls' ability. to choose subjects. And then societal level, what sort of legislation we have, what sort of how do we see gender, how inclusive social norms we have for men and women for making their choices. How do we portray women in the media? What sort of roles are portrayed for women in the media, and what girls see and develop as from very little girls to women has an influence on their ability to choose various different subjects which they do. And if so what is it that we can do about it? Are there any interventions that would help? So as I say, if we are going to look at the ecological model in which we talked about individual level factors, family and peer level factors, school and society. So again, if we look at those aspects and try and intervene, things would help. So for example, individual level factors, if we give positive role models, if we provide motivations, if we encourage girls to experiment different things. A very small example could be that rather than only giving girls toys and in terms of dolls and the home and the kitchen houses type of toys, if we give them Legos, for example, or let them experiment with Legos and other things. So build that curiosity, build that questioning into them, encourage those questioning skills. I think we would be able to help with that. Similarly, at family and peers level, if we have more interaction between parent and children, more discussion about why something, what our career choice and how do people go about it, work with parents to change their perception of what girls can and cannot do, that would help us change the environment. Similarly, at the school level, we need to look at the exposures to STEM and science and technology related subjects. Are there placements available where we take students to have a look at those aspects? Are there mentorships available? Are there opportunities to ask question and experiment and get involved in different fields for girls? Is there information available for different professional choices that girls can have? And similarly, at societal level, providing that structure where women are able to work in various different fields, making legislations, making policies where people are able to work safely in the environment where they want to work, having career progression mechanisms, career progression pathways where people know how they're going to progress into their career and what is their career pathways, having job security, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the factors which hopefully would help solve the issues. So what should we explore in research? Well, there is quite a lot that we do not know, and there is quite a lot that we know. But when it comes to developing countries, we do need to ask, does involvement of girls in science and technology subjects at school leads to increased participation in those subjects by women later on? What hurdles do women face throughout their education at secondary and higher education levels to choose science and technology related subjects, and what is it which we can do about it? What can be done to eliminate barriers affecting women's progress and performance in their careers and in their choice of careers? And what can be done to promote work-life balance so that people are able to work effectively? There have been some good examples. Recently, I was watching a news program, like for example, with regards to ICT, because use of ICT, and especially the positive aspects of COVID, is that it has challenged our notion that you only need to go out of the house to go and work, and therefore many people could not actually do that. So it has challenged that notion, and people have been forced to study from home, deliver courses from home, work from home. And ICT is something which allows women participation in that aspect, that they don't necessarily have to go anywhere to be able to do their job. They can actually do quite a lot of work sitting at home just by doing what they are doing. So there are possibilities which are available. So I think that has challenged a lot, and that has had positive impact as to people starting to look into those opportunities and trying to develop women in those particular areas. We should also be looking into how can gender bias in the review processes for assigning new research grants, filling positions, or designing new research policies can be tackled. How can we involve more women into debates, into discussion, into other aspects wherever possible? and how can the gender dimension be promoted in research? So these are some of the questions which I think we do need to ask. And as I say, science and technology is a very vast subject, so it doesn't necessarily is limited to any one particular aspect, though the number of women and girls in science and technology related aspects are quite less, especially when it comes to developing countries. And it's largely is attributed to not having very clear pathways, not having the opportunities available, not having the right role models available for these women to progress into their career. So as a summary, what I have talked about throughout this talk is that there are multiple and overlapping factors which influence girls' interest and engagement with science and technology. The disadvantage is both because of it's not because of the girls' cognitive abilities, but the socialization processes. As I say, that somehow children, men and girls and boys, both children perform similarly, or girl outperform boys in early years of the schooling, but something happens afterwards, and as they progress, they start losing interest into it, which is explainable through socialization process, through looking at what opportunities do we offer them, and what sort of role models are available for them. Having more girls in science and technology as well as in any other field is important and beneficial for everyone, and therefore we do need to encourage it. So thank you ever so much for listening to me. I hope that was useful, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Hi, everyone can hear me, hopefully. This is Fayaz again. Thank you, Parveen, so for delivering such a nice talk, and I think which is a need of our as well, that our better halves and our better part of the lives, which are our females and then our daughters and sisters and so on and so forth, they should be very much engaged into the mainstream regarding science, technology, arts, and so on and so forth. That is very, very important. Now we will move towards questions and answers session. Now managing that kind of a session remotely is kind of a challenge, but we have been trying to do it. The trick is we have a function within Zoom. If they raise their hands, and then I call their names, and then they can put their questions to you. So we will start those questions maybe in a minute, until people have got bit of familiarity to find out where is the raising hand button and so on and so forth. Rija, in the meanwhile, can you circulate the link for the certificates as well? Okay. So now I am.
If you're okay, Fayaz, I'll just answer to a couple of questions and comments raised in the chat box. If that's okay.
Great.
Okay, thank you. So Nighat, thank you so much for your comment, and yeah, where you see that 90% women, yes, it is quite nice, but then it would also be very nice that percentage of women and girls who are studying these subjects translates into the practice as well, and they go into practice market. So for example, you all know that medicine is something which is perhaps does not necessarily is affected by these factors, but even then the data from the Pakistan Medical and Dental Councils, which was prior to the new body, shows that though we have 50 to 60% students into the field, but when it comes to registration and practicing as a doctors, only about 30% of women work. And same is with nursing, and same is with other professions afterwards, which then tells you that there are women into the higher education, and they do complete courses, but the percentage keeps on dropping. And when it comes to girls and women, it starts off very early, a very early age. So even in the context of Pakistan, the amount of school leavers, the percentage of school leavers in girls is much more higher than boys. So there are quite a lot which we need to do about it. So how is it possible? I'm not really sure what if I'm getting your question, Jem Saddam. Ghulam Murtaba 2015, why we have data 4 to 5 years old? We will use the data which is available. So if the data is available 4 to 5 years old, so not every country collects the data. Not every country has the data. So data usually collected from 2015 to onwards. Some data is available in some countries for 1 year and not the other. So whatever data is available, that is useful. But having said that, you will be surprised to see that, quite a lot of time we think things have changed, but research would suggest that things do not necessarily change that much. So while it is 4 to 5 years old data, I would doubt things have changed much in any way, shape or form. Okay, and the reason for Muslim contributors being neglected as a role model, well, what I believe is because their own people, their own communities don't support them, don't celebrate their achievement. Yes, I agree, Shimra, we don't do enough in terms of celebrating achievements, in terms of highlighting achievements, in terms of recognizing people. We are very good at leg pulling. We are very good at telling people what they have done wrong. One example is challenging 4 to 5 years old data here in this group. But and it's I'm not picking you up, Ghulam, in any ways, but I think this is really very true. What we are not really good at celebrating success, highlighting what people can do and what they have done, and identifying and having records, having writing up is something that we are not really very good at, and I think that we need to improve ourselves on that. Homa, I'll be able to take a question. Rida, yeah, I can't find. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Happy to take any more questions.
Homa asked me the question privately. She says, which data sources are available other than UIS for STEM data?
There is quite a lot of information available. There is quite a lot which UNESCO have done, UNFP have done. They have written books, they have written reports. There's data available on women in research. There's data available on women participation in STEM subjects. And I could guide you with that. Even in Pakistan, British Council and some other, British Council has recently conducted a research on women in STEM, so that's available. Having said that, once you start looking into it, it all turns into the same thing. It gives you the same sort of information as to 30% of women in research, 30% of women in STEM subjects, and having less number afterwards. Because many countries are trying to encourage women participation into science and technology related subjects and other subjects. So universities and places are constantly working on those aspects. So therefore you will find some information available. So if, I'll be happy to share with you, or you can just even start Googling it. And I think there is quite a lot of blogs, there's quite a lot of reports, quite a lot of toolkits that you will be able to find, identify, which actually tells you what you need to do at different levels to increase participation. And I hope you will find useful. Thank you.
I have a question, if that's okay. So there's a lot of, obviously, loads of females would like to pursue a career in a STEM related area, but obviously as they grow up, they'll have other responsibilities such as, taking care of their children, sort of taking care of the family sort of business. How do you create that incentive for women to join these fields when they have other responsibilities? Like, how do you think we should create incentives for these women? For example, I know in the NHS, there's an option for women to work at slower time, have fewer hours, reduced hours, so they can reach consultancy, but at a later stage. How do you think we can do that in developing countries?
I think you've answered your question in some ways by yourself. One of the issues that we see in Pakistan, not only with science and technology related subjects, but if we generally talk about women participation into any subject, into education, into universities, and into as scientists, we do not have appropriate supporting policies available for them. The only mode of work up until now, this is starting to get a little bit kind of momentum in some private places. But up until now, the only way to work is full-time job. And there's no concepts of part-time working. There's no concept for working from home. This is what I'm talking about, for example, universities and other places, that if you were, this micromanagement related issues, not having the policies around how we can ensure women participation into different fields is much more missing. But in terms of, if we look at the opportunities with information communication technology and a lot of facilities which are available, actually all of those things are possible. If we take the example example of India, a lot of publication process that academics publish in journals, a lot of that goes on to India, where people are processing publications, looking at editing, and they all, all those things. So there is quite a lot of untapped markets where we could actually tap in, make friendly policies, provide opportunities of different working conditions and different working time periods, as you've just talked about, flexible working timings depending on people's needs, providing those sorts of things, providing opportunities for people to work from home. But I think this all goes back to gender attitudes and the attitudes of why should we do that. One of our very common misconceptions that we have when it comes to educating our female is that इन्होंने कौन सी नौकरी करनी है, they are not going to they don't need a job. And unfortunately that doesn't only exist in Pakistan. Even in our families here in the UK, those who are professionals, when it comes to work experiences of their children, we see that Pakistani children are not that good in terms of they struggle with interviewing process and other aspects when they come to university. And a lot of that goes to when you ask parents to provide them with working experience, and especially for girls, both for girls and boys, but especially for girls, the hurdles are that they wouldn't want to do it, mainly because of their protective thoughts, mainly because, it feels bad that my daughter has to go for work experience. Does that mean I can't provide for them? No, it's actually not that. It gives them experience. So what the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of this is about our attitude towards gender, how we see women participating into different fields, how we see they should be doing and how they should be doing. That's the reason I provided definitions of gender, gender equity, and gender equality earlier on. So I think we need to challenge those assumptions. Once we started challenging that, we will be able to see quite openly as to what strategies can we develop to make sure women participation is encouraged.
Okay, thank you. I think we are a bit short of time. I am really impressed the level of interest and the real questions, not for the sake of questions, but really scratching the surface on the underlying issues, which is really quite encouraging that the level of awareness is increasing in our targeted groups, which is fine. Thank you, Parveen. Now, I would also like to announce that kindly Parveen has consented to do a series of skills related lectures, monthly lectures from this platform, which will be essentially on research skills or key writing skills, something along those lines. So apart from these big issues, if you keep engaging with us, you will be having some real learning opportunities as well. Thank you, Parveen. That is very much appreciated. I have been just informed that we have one Vice Chancellor, Dr. Samreen. She is the Vice Chancellor of Begum Nusrat Bhutto University, and right now she is somewhere in between Hyderabad and Karachi. And I think we are connected. Dr. Samreen, are you there?
Yeah, very much.
Okay,
thank you so
I
much
would
for
like to
inviting.
have you to have a few words, please. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, all. And I could only get, last words of Ms. Parveen Ali, and I really enjoyed our discussion. I wish I could have joined you earlier, but unfortunately, I have to travel back and forth to Sakhar. And once again, I'm a woman, I'm a mother of two, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter too, and yet, I am able to do all these things. And my university is not one of those university which is, actually given to me as a set university, go and rule. It was a university which had only one officer when I was appointed, that is the vice chancellor. From there to now, Alhamdulillah, last Sunday we have advertised our first ever admissions in the history of this university. So that's a women, right? I feel like women are more resilient than men, because we actually go through so many things that men cannot even imagine. They come back from office and they think they have done all. But a woman, when she comes back, she has to be on the same energy level to entertain kids, to entertain the other family members, to take care of the husband, parents, and no matter what. But yet, in the middle of night, we think what should we do next in the office. And I tell you, only women can do that. I give one man this whole responsibility as a single parent, I tell you, he'll be failed. So I wish to encourage every woman who thinks she has a tendency to be a professional, please come forward. Unless you don't try yourself, you cannot decide about yourself. And I totally endorse the idea of getting early exposed to the workplaces, just like in America. After high school, every kid's supposed to have a little bit income just to get engaged in the things and work environment, because you cannot have a chosen bosses. You have to cope up with different type of people. You have to uh, interact with people you might not like, but I usually used to say at my office, hum yahan rishtedari karne nahi aaye. So just focus on the professional side and try to rub the fine side of the individual. Don't try to rub its rough side. So I think being a woman is a pride for me. And with no offense to men has been always very helping and very cooperative in my success road. And because I never tried to be a female or a woman, I always tried to be a professional with them. I compete with them on my merit. I didn't try to get an edge being a woman. So I think this women empowerment is no more uh, kind of thing that you can ignore, but we women should be taking it serious, that now if world is talking about us, we should come forward and our actions should be louder than our words. We need to prove them that we are we are actually able to lead. We are able to be part of the policies, maybe your social empowerment, maybe your financial empowerment. And I keep financial empowerment ahead of social empowerment, because unless you are not financially autonomous, even you won't have say in your houses. So
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think we should and do acknowledge that, when it comes to success of any single person, it's not one person's success. It is the whole family. It is everybody working together. If I am where I am today, it has got involvement of three of my children, of my husband, of my family. So, men in our families are involved and do their, and without their help or without their support, or and for them as well, as they say, for every successful man has a successful, or somebody, a woman behind it. So we can't really work without each other. I think it is about finding those opportunities and supporting how, for those supportive men who support their daughters, their sisters, their wives, their mothers in pursuing their career, for them to act the same way for other women when it comes to outside their family. I think that's when we are going to bring up change.
yeah, that I totally endorse it. And yes, day before yesterday I was in interview and they asked me, "Okay, if you have any problem with men." I said, no, I cannot give you a single name of a man who has actually been creating any problem for me, even in my profession or at my house. They have been very supportive, and without their support I could not manage. As you say, my two kids, they are suffering a lot because of my absence from house. But yet they're supporting me, encouraging me, "Never mind, mom, we know that that's requirement of your work." And once again, I would like to endorse your last point, that men, because I used to say I am actually bringing up a son with enough moral values that your daughter should not be afraid of.
Mm.
So this should be the goal of every mother, to inculcate these moral values in their son, so that any daughter anywhere should not be afraid of them. So it actually begins from grooming point of view at home, and only then they can practice what they see at their places. So once again, I'm sorry I cannot continue with this
Oh, I
because I
think
have to move
that's
on.
fine. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Samreen and Dr. Parveen. Shall we all thank both of them, and especially Dr. Parveen, for making such an impressive and impactful presentation, and Dr. Samreen's timely intervention and participation. I hope you were in this. We were in the same room. You would have heard lots of clapping, but it is happening right now wherever we are. So let me conclude on this nice note. that we all are part of the society, and then we all have the responsibility, regardless men, women, boys and girls. We have to play our role as an individual and as a community and as a society as well. With this note, I would like to conclude today's meeting, and thank you, Dr. Parveen, once again. You did a very wonderful job, and I'm sure our audience will be seeing you fairly soon with some skill development activity via